On today's show, we talk about video games, visit with a Hippy Pilgrim, continue our conversation with community advocate Lisa Drennan, hear original poetry from Mark Walsh, and talk about upcoming things to do in our South Shore towns. We're glad you're here. Let's get started. A familiar face from your neighborhood farmers market and on the Food Network, we talked with Susanna Lucchetti about her passion for raw garlic salt and gourmet seasoning, and how her passion became her business. Here is Hippy Pilgrim on the local scene.
Coming up next on Decadent Delights, no matter what health plan you're following, breakfast is still the most important meal of the day.
The opportunity for the Food Network arose actually through PAC TV. Food Network launched this search for the next Food Network star. So I thought, I kind of want to be like part of this pilot. So I used my experience from PAC TV, made a quick little cooking video. I found out once I got there, my video was the first one received out of 10,000. And they told me that for a month, they only got my tape. So they had put out the contest, they had the deadline. I had the tape done and sent out before anyone even sent a tape in for 30 days. So my name was kind of just sitting on the executives' desks for a month. So they kind of had no choice but to pick me at that point, I guess.
I've given you 5 great recipes. Go to town, experiment.
I love inspiring people to get in their kitchens and cook, even if they think they have no skill at all. I was the only non-professional chef out of the 8 on that show. I just thought, who cares? Like, we all just have a basic love of cooking, and it really reiterated my love of food, my love of television, and my ability to be able to educate people in a super fun way than they would normally get from a regular cooking class, but do it through this like super cool medium of television. When I was little, I was very interested in food. My mom was a 5-star cook. Like, she was just so good. And she made everything from scratch. We had a garden, everything. So I saw farm to table from a very young age, kind of inspired me. The product came before the concept. I was given a jar of garlic salt by a coworker at an old job back in 2005. And it turns out she made this product once a year at the holidays, gave it to people for Christmas gifts, and that was the end of it. So I used it, and I was like, hey girl, I really like that garlic salt, can you give me some more? And she said, you're gonna have to come up with a recipe on your own. I make it once a year, and I made a batch. Mine was like totally different from hers, but I liked it. I was like, oh, I really like this. So I gave it as gifts. And over the years, people got super embarrassed coming and getting free salt all the time. They were like, why don't you just start a business? So I had a group of friends together and we were like, oh, what can we name it? And everyone's like, Susie's Salt, Susie's Spices, and nothing was really jiving with me. And I was really hell-bent on making a fresh farm-to-table garlic salt. And when I was 19, I used to give like those boat duck tours in Plymouth Harbor. So I had to know all this Pilgrim history. And I remember thinking to myself, like, what would some little hippie Pilgrim chick back then be doing to make this garlic salt if she had to make it back in the Pilgrim days? And I imagined this like Pilgrim with long hair, and her hair was in like garlic braids, and wicked hippie on the beach milling her salt. And I thought, oh my God, that's like a cool name, a Hippy Pilgrim. Just went for it, and I'm so glad I did, because every time someone goes by our banner at a market, they're like, oh my God, I love that name, and it just fits who we are. Like, I am a little hippie, and I am a pilgrim. I've lived here all my life, so it just kind of works. My business started out with just me. We're 10 years in the game now, so it's myself. I have a full-time employee, 6 part-time employees, bubbly, enthusiastic, women who work for me, who were customers prior to this that have now, are now working for me and selling this product for me. That's kind of magical to know that not only are they advancing my personal and professional goals, but I'm doing the same for them in their lives. My first full-time employee is a gifted small business owner herself. She does makeup and photography, and I give her the flexibility in this job, if she has a makeup job or a photo shoot, to just take that rest of the day off and do it. I'm able to allow people to flourish in their dreams at the same time they're allowing me to flourish in mine, so it's this two-way awesomeness happening, and that's with each individual employee. We all have a different relationship with each other, and we all are helping each other meet each other's goals in life. Our goals just look different. The community has contributed to my success by actively supporting small and local. You learn so much about your customer base, and if it weren't for all of those customers, I wouldn't be able to do what I love. Whenever someone leaves my booth at a market, I always say, welcome to the family, number one, if they're a new customer. Or I'll say, I'm so grateful that you supported small and local, or I'm grateful to have a home in your kitchen. And if it's an online order, I always write a personal thank you note. An order never leaves the site without a personal thank you note that says, I appreciate the order, here's why I appreciate it, and it's always handwritten, and it's just part of that personal relationship I have with everybody. My advice for business owners just starting out, be super enthusiastic about your product. When they see how excited you are and how helpful it is in your life, they're more willing to take a chance when you kind of share that little bit of personal story about yourself. So they truly know the person behind the brand, and it's just a more personal relationship. When I create a new product, my first thought is the flavor profile. And I usually have a dream, like, I had this dream and these flavors are gonna go well together, and I'll create it. I am thinking, like, what will this go with? What will this pair well with? So I can come out with ideas for my customers, but I'm never quite imagining who ends up with it. I received an email recently, and it was from a customer who they are big into family tradition with recipes, so they pass on recipes from generation to generation. And they were writing to let me know that this generation's recipes all include my garlic salt as a specific ingredient in the recipe. So it's not just garlic, salt, pepper. They write Hippy Pilgrim, basil garlic salt. And to know that you've become part of a family's tradition, that's just like, that's when you know you've made it, even if you're not on national shelves. Like, I know I've made it when I've made that type of personal impact in a customer's life.
September 16th is International Beach Cleanup Day, and local nonprofit Manomet invites you to join them at White Horse Beach in Plymouth to help make our coastline safer and cleaner for people and wildlife. There's free street parking along Taylor Avenue, and light snacks will be provided for this 9 to 11:30 a.m. event. Bring your friends, family, and a reusable water bottle. Light snacks will be provided. For questions, contact Mike Molnar, Director of Manomet's Coastal Zone Initiative, at mmolnar@manomet.org. Register for the event via the Manomet Facebook page. While September is still technically summer, autumn is falling and is a prelude to Oktoberfest. If you're eager to break out your beer krug, head over to the Kingsbury Pub in Kingston on September 22nd from 7 to 10 p.m. for a traditional Oktoberfest menu, activities, a German beer tasting, Oompa music, and more. To reserve your spot, visit the Kingsbury Pub Eventbrite page. Next up, Chris Quinn and Matt Umbriana talk about the community and culture of gaming and give some startup advice on leveling up from newbie to experienced gamer in Open Here, Video Games 101.
Hey Matt, you got any time to talk about video games with me?
Yeah, I've got a couple minutes, Chris.
So dude, recently I've been sitting down with my nephew and we've been playing my Nintendo Switch, because my nephew's 4 now and he's just starting to get to that point where video games are starting to make sense to him. And it's kind of weird because I'm going through this part where I'm the adult in the situation, because 20 years ago, I was where he was, playing video games with my siblings. Only difference is I had siblings. He's the first nephew, first grandchild, so he's going through that. It's super fun, but you never told me about your first experience gaming. I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, well, so my first experience gaming was very similar to yours, where it's about 21 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
My uncle actually played the NES with Super Mario Bros.
Oh, cool.
And that was back in my old Rockland house in the basement on the old tube TV.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. 2-player game, can't beat it.
No.
That cooperative gameplay just, it captures you, especially with that world of Super Mario as well.
For me, it wasn't so much like the original Super Mario. I started on the GameCube, so it was all 3-dimensional. Around the GameCube, all the games and graphics were pretty ocean and tropical centric. So Mario Sunshine came came in like an island adventure.
Great
You had the
game.
Legend of Zelda where you're just like sailing along the ocean. But for me, like I was playing monkey ball with my siblings and my friends. You were just like racing along this little track as 4 monkeys in a ball, like a hamster going around this little wheel.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
Monkey Ball.
there were 4 monkeys. There were 4 of us, and we were fighting for monkeys. It was awful. It was fun. It was great. My brother was like, I want to be Gong Gong. I wanted to be Gong Gong. My sister wanted to be Gong Gong. The cat wanted to be Gong Gong. I got to be Gong Gong.
You got to be Gong Gong?
I got to be Gong Gong.
Oh, yeah. That's what it's all about.
It was all gone when I was Gong Gong. But like, I'm sitting here with my nephew, and like, his curiosity is getting to me. Like, it's like I didn't think about games like this.
That's what starts it, though.
Like
you know?
I was playing Mario Sunshine. I was super simple. What about you?
Well, I mean, I became what my uncle was to me for, introducing me into gaming. I became that for my siblings when it came to the time. One of the first games that we would play, or I would play and they would watch, would be Fallout New Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a massive open world role-playing game with tons of opportunities to choose however you'd like the story to unfold.
Yeah, and it's like it's a beautiful world, the Mojave Desert, the post-apocalyptic, like old-timey Western feels
that
and
vibe
vibes.
is so good.
Yeah. Just makes you feel like you walk up to a saloon and get a Sunset Sarsaparilla. But dude, I was honestly kind of thinking too, because like I've been gaming forever, and this kid is 4. He's just starting out.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much you can do with it, because like we started like
What was
remember when online gaming started?
Oh yeah, that was a huge that created a massive community.
Yeah.
A massive community.
Dude, I made so many friends online.
That was when I got the Xbox 360 and started playing the Call of Duties.
Yeah.
That was where I made a lot of online friends.
You know what was like the game changer for me?
What?
In like 2010, I got the Minecraft alpha, and I started. So we started using this app called TeamSpeak, which was like a voice chat server.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Discord before Discord.
Yeah, basically online voice chat.
Yep.
And so I joined this Minecraft server's voice chat. I met like 4 of my best friends on there. These 2 Swedes named Clara and Becca. My friend Kirby in Dayton, Ohio. I'd never go to Dayton, Ohio,
No.
but I'd go hang out with Kirby.
But there is a certain type of connection that you make with those people online.
Oh yeah, those are like some of my lifelong friends. I met them when I was like 12, 13.
Yeah.
Like, granted, Kirby was already like 19 and a mechanic. Becca and Clara were about my age, sure, but like I'm still friends with them, and like we still have had all those experiences together.
It is impressive how gaming can kind of bridge that gap between age difference.
Yeah.
Where you were saying your
Yeah.
cousin is 4.
Yeah. Nephew, but yes.
Nephew's 4, and he's just getting into the gaming world.
Yeah.
Same thing with us when we were young.
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations
Honestly,
for games?
like for like starting out?
Yeah.
Honestly, in 2022, 'cause keep in mind, man, like gaming's been around for like 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's hard to find a bad game for beginners. Like most game developers are aware, any game could be someone's first game.
They're
Any game.
intuitive. Every game will
Yeah.
come with a tutorial.
Most games, yeah. Most games have a tutorial. Most games will walk you along. They have varying levels of difficulty.
Mhm.
Like I'm trying to think. Like I can't think of a bad game. Can you?
No, I can say though that it does feel a bit overwhelming when you look at the massive sea of games that you could jump into, and there's a lot of different types of gamers out there.
But I feel like that's kind of the great part too, because of the diversity and the choice.
Yeah, and that's the point is you get to kind of define what your gaming style is going to be, whether you decide you want to be more of a competitive gamer or if you'd rather be more casual and take it easy.
Like I said, I met Kirby and Becca and Clara playing Minecraft, but like me and Kirby we played Left 4 Dead. We played Power Washing Simulator.
Oh, love power washing. It's just a game about
Power
power
washing.
washing.
Exactly.
But it's so satisfying. There's so
Does it make sense that you can power wash SpongeBob's pineapple and bikini bottom? No.
but I love it.
Oh yeah. So, what about you? Because like, dude, what like if you're with a friend, you're with a nephew, like you're in my situation, what would you start him out with?
I mean, some of the earliest games that I played, Tetris is just blocks. Like you can't get that wrong. And that mixed with Dr. Mario, same thing. Those are just very easy beginner games to get into. it's just classic. It's timeless.
Yeah, like, dude, I was sitting in the nurse's office in high school playing Tetris while I was waiting for her, and the school safety officer, Mr. Earl, walked in. He's like, "Oh, you're playing Tetris. You're an old school kind of guy."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, Mr. Earl."
Yeah.
So, like, I was able to bottom Mr. Earl over that.
What do you recommend for early games?
So, like, these days, like, Nintendo has probably the least barrier to entry, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
One, because everyone knows who Mario is. He just had a movie released.
Yeah.
But, like, the Mario
Very
games
successful movie.
yeah, I'd say so. But, like, the Mario games are always good to start out with. Like, so there's always something simple, like the Untitled Goose Game, where you're just walking around as a goose. There's no real goal aside from annoying people. Which, if you want to vent some frustration, go be an annoying goose.
Yeah. Now that we've kind of talked about some of the beginner games, do you have any favorites? Like any games that are like your top tier favorite games of all time?
So, like, two of my favorites, they're pretty different. The first one is called Chibi Robo. You're this little robot who was bought by a family. The family's on some bad terms, you know. Not mom and dad aren't getting along, the kids being rebellious, and your job is to go around, you clean up the house, you make friends with the other toys that have come to life around you, and you help the family come back together.
Aww.
It's just a fun little experience where you clean up messes with a toothbrush.
That sounds like a fun story.
Yeah, and the other one is a hard-hitting, gritty superhero game called Infamous. It was released on the PlayStation. Like, Nintendo and PlayStation are a little different in terms of the atmosphere and experience you get. With Infamous, you're in this destroyed New York City type city, going around doing missions, and the game has a heavy morality system, so you can decide whether to be the hero or the villain of the story.
I love games like that give you the choice.
Yeah, player choice and player agency are like two of the biggest things in games, because making a story someone can play along is one thing. Making a story that someone can directly affect is like
a totally different game, like totally different ballpark. Some of my favorite games through the years were very similar to that. Was Elder Scrolls Oblivion.
Oh, dude, I love that. Patrick Stewart was in it.
It's so good. Not to mention the star-studded cast, but like the soundtrack and the storytelling of that game was phenomenal for its time.
Not to mention for the crew sizes in it. They had one guy make all the dungeons. They had like I think one or two people make all the music.
That game has become classic in my eyes, and I still find ways to incorporate the soundtrack into my day-to-day life.
And we're still waiting 20 years for Elder Scrolls 6.
Unfortunate.
All right. Well, Matt, I just wanted to ask you before we wrap up, like, gaming communities have like blown up in the past 20 years. So like,
it's a big culture.
Yeah. Just like, dude, I think the greatest thing about them, honestly, is just gaming community. Gaming as a community isn't just one community. It's like what sports has become. There's an overall sports community, but basketball, lacrosse, hockey, baseball, badminton. You can find
pickleball.
You can find pickleball. You can find a community for any type of game that you love.
Yeah, and you know, gaming can go beyond just like the video games.
Yeah.
Like tabletop games, for example. Like even some of our coworkers here, like Mark, plays tabletop games like Warhammer.
Yeah.
And that has its own video games as well. Several video games.
Yeah, a long-running series with many great hits.
I feel like gaming culture, just the connection between everybody is huge. I think that the online aspects that exploded in the
late 2000s.
Yeah, I feel like that was a huge defining moment for gaming.
I feel like that's what brought gaming as a community into the modern age and sort of exploded it to the point where it can be anything and it can be for anyone.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, honestly, we should probably get back to work.
You think so?
Maybe.
Okay, let's probably get back to work.
Let's get back to work.
The year-round Pilgrim Hall Museum Speaker Series features compelling lectures on a range of history-related topics. On September 14th, join historian, genealogist, and creator of MayflowerHistory.com, Caleb Johnson, for a discussion on early Plymouth life, Mayflower families, and some of his recent discoveries. The event is free and open to the public. Reserve your seat and visit the website at pilgrimhall.org. Poetry and pottery, not just alliteration. Throughout the years, poets Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, Walt Whitman, Khalil Gibran, Henry David Thoreau, and more celebrated potters, creating a metaphor for life out of the art of shaping clay. On September 20th from 6 to 7 p.m., join Kingston Public Library and Pied Potter Hamlin at the Font School for the one-of-a-kind program, all about poets and potters. Hamlin will demonstrate throwing at the pottery wheel while exploring the prose and historical connections of Massachusetts potters and poets. Attendees will additionally create and take home a pinch pot of their very own. To register for this event, visit the library's website. Here's poet Mark Walsh in a reading of his original work.
Our next poet is Mark Walsh. Mark, come on up and let us know a little bit about yourself.
Good afternoon. How's everyone doing today? Good. Thank you to the organizers for putting this all together. I'm very excited to be participating in the inaugural send-off of the Plymouth Poetry Festival. So my name is Mark Walsh. By day, and even today, I am a professor of English and philosophy at Massasoit Community College. By afternoon, as in today, I am a reader of poetry submissions for the Lilly Poetry Review. And in the afternoons and the evenings, I like to think of myself as a poet and an occasional drummer, but more poet these days than drummers. So I would like to read a couple of poems for you today. The first one is a poem that was a commissioned poem. And this is the first time that this ever happened to me, and I was very delighted. I teach at the Brockton campus of Massasoit Community College, and I've developed a working relationship with the poet laureate of Brockton, Mass, Philip Hesouris. And Philip had, asked me to participate in this collaborative art project with a mosaic artist by the name of Emily Bergarva. And Emily made 6 mosaic pieces, and then we were all ushered into the art gallery, and we picked the one that we wanted to do. And so I have a photo of the one that I can even hand around. So this is the mosaic piece of art that I selected. We all wrote poems, and then a photo of the mosaic, and then our poem was put on a plaque, and they're now sitting outside the side entrance of the Brockton Public Library main campus. So this is called Slow Wine. And this is really a love letter to the rough and tumble city I work in. Slow wine. A weed is a wonder, tempered by winter's crust and summer's weird heat, simmering with deep-coated growth, knowing a persistent secret, like shattered glass shards stitched into a picture. Pulled up each July without surrendering the root, multiple stalks climb for air in a September surge, steady bloom in a season's decay. This is slow wine, a refusal to ferment or convert to a thing consumed. Flowers steady in place and time. Fragmented light along dandelion shafts, a thing once broken is stronger by half. So this next poem I'd like to read, I was just very fortunate to have this accepted in a magazine called Rituals that comes out twice a year. It comes out of New Bedford, and the theme for this next issue of Rituals is going to be memory and nostalgia, and both of those things I believe are present in this poem, and it's called Observances. Observances. Thoreau knew an anthill could provide an afternoon's entertainment. Back much further, 12-year-olds were sent by parents to gather acorns for the tribe. One summer resort day, my buddy and I let our suburban minds hatch a swell idea. Grab up the Day-Glo coffee cans repurposed as lounge chair ashtrays, dump them in the creek that ran under the cement swimming pool, and watch them tumble down the short falls just inside the tree line. A good hour's amusement before we got nabbed, loudly lectured, made to climb down slippery stones and gather up every dented can in our stubby reach. A large crowd enjoyed the justice. Later, we shrugged it off with a laugh, blind to the real crime. People of wilderness cultures rarely seek out adventures. Boredom is the god that gets us in the end. And then I'd just like to see if I can squeeze one more poem in. So this, how can I put this? We took an amazing trip to the Galapagos and Peru this time last year, and we really got ourselves in shape for it, my wife and I, and then when we came back, we just like sat down, and we sat down for like 7 months. But, you know, when you sit down for 7 months when you're 32, versus when you sit down for 7 months when you're 56 or so, that's a different story. So I was noticing changes in my life that brought about this poem called Banisters. Banisters were things to slide down or touch lightly to make them feel less alone as you climbed up to somewhere else. Now legs lift heavier, thighs ache, a flooded knee forces a tighter grip. The newel post knows full weight bearing down through the hand is a cathedral brace. As I reach the top tread and regain my balance before the next step, it's the voice of Bukowski I hear in strange welcome. You're getting old, old boy. Age is never marked by time, but by what steadies us. Thank you.
Kites are utilized for enjoyment, human flight, military devices, meteorology, and can be examples of beautiful artwork. On September 30th at 1:30 p.m., the Art Complex Museum welcomes you to join professional kite designer and educator Glenn Davidson for Art That Flies, a kite presentation and guide through the art and science of this quadrilateral construction. You'll be able to build, decorate, and take to the museum ground sky with your newly built kite. This event is free and open to the public. No strings attached. The Kingston COA has exciting news. A new monthly program geared toward members and friends of the LGBTQ+ community is launching this fall. Whether you identify or are an ally, this initiative is intended to be a safe space for education, encouragement, and support. The Kingston COA would love your input in order to build this program to fit the specific needs of our Kingston senior community. Please call Outreach Coordinator Martha Shanahan with your ideas and suggestions at 781-831-6044. All contributions will be kept confidential. The COA looks forward to hearing from you. Here's part 2 of Tiff Phillips' conversation with community advocate Lisa Drennan on our Open Here podcast.
So how does inclusion benefit not just people with varied disabilities, but also the community as a whole? How do we all benefit from it?
Yeah, and I often, in part of my training, so what I will do is we'll break down the benefits for the individual, for the organization seeking to be more inclusive, and then for the community as a whole. And I think for the individual, I mean, to me, it's so simple, right? You would think of that they are participating in something they love, they're valued, right? They maybe have an opportunity to learn a new skill. They feel like they belong, right? So that's a benefit for them. And perhaps even the opportunity for a job where they are earning their own money, right? And then I think for an organization, there's so many benefits, and I could go on and on. Right. But I think one of the misunderstandings about inclusion, and usually it comes up as a hurdle right away. Oh, it's so expensive. We can't afford to do inclusion. And actually, there's more financial benefits to an organization that commits to being more inclusive. Just think about it. You open up let's say 1 in 5 people have or will have a disability at some point in their lives, right? That's a big chunk of our community, right? And it's the largest minority group in the world, right? So if we open up and welcome in this community, you're increasing your clientele, right? I know myself, I will shop at a store or patronize an organization or business that intentionally hires folks with diverse abilities. So there's those benefits. But then you also think that inclusive strategies, so if I work, say, with the YMCA and I'm teaching them, here are inclusive strategies, but here's the kicker. We use these for everyone because they benefit everyone. Having an inclusive mindset of helping someone to be successful at whatever you're offering, a swim class, right? Being part of a yoga or joining a tennis league, then those strategies are going to help everyone, whether someone has a diagnosis or not. It doesn't matter. It's going to be beneficial for everyone. And typical peers, right, or neurotypical peers or non-disabled peers they can be a great role model, right, for someone learning, my first day in camp, what's this like, right? How do I interact? So there's win-wins there. But for our community as a whole, I think when we all think about being more inclusive, we open up more spaces and places. Right. And, from churches to libraries to clubs that you belong in, scouts, any part of our community that makes that intentional decision to be more inclusive in its practices, it's a win-win for everybody. And it breaks down those barriers of like, those people, don't they have their special staff who work with those special people, which is not something that isn't a very positive way to look at folks with disabilities.
So what are some small steps that we can take as individuals to become a more inclusive community?
Yeah, I think, there's so many things that we can do, but right out of the bat, I think the first thing is inform yourself, right? Yeah. Education. Start with learning disability etiquette, proper terminology, right? Maybe follow social media platforms or podcasts or read books about disability to learn, especially learning from folks with disabilities, right? So there's a term, nothing about us without us. So I think that's the first thing that we want to do, is just inform yourself. Maybe do an assessment for where your organization, your business, your group, your club is at, and say, can we be doing better? Wow, I'm looking around, and of all of our employees, there's no one that appears to have or is identified as having a disability. Can we do better? Are we hiring a diverse workforce? And if not, what can we do to start that? So start with training and education, and that goes from the top all the way down to the bottom, right? From your CEO or executive director, all the way down to the boots on the ground who peers next, sitting next to someone with a disability. I think that's important, and connecting with someone. Say hello. Look past, I always call it like pull back that curtain, right? When we see someone who it's apparent that they have a disability or you're aware that they have a disability, that's all we tend to focus on.
Right.
And then we're very deficit focused. And what I try to teach, let's be strength focused, and we have to first get to know the person. Start by saying hello, right? And then asking questions as you would anyone else. I love your hat. You're really into, this sports team. Or, I notice you're very fashionable. Do you like shopping, right? Or anything. I see you're reading this book, or you're interested in horseback riding, right? So, tell me more. And then you get to know a person. And I think that's really important, just to connect with somebody. And then I think, okay, now you've learned, you're educated, and you're connecting, but then act, right? Do something that's going to help propel more inclusive communities. And that could be, in my work setting, we're going to hire someone to come in and do an inclusion training, okay? And I know there's a huge DEI movement, diversity, equity, inclusion. Typically, the focus is on other dimensions of diversity and leaves out the largest minority group in the world, disability. So make sure you're not leaving that out, because if your DEI initiative does not include disability, it's exclusive. Right. So there's that, and be an ally. And by being an ally, I always like to kind of state this. An ally is not something you are, it's something you do. Right? Advocate for, connect with, speak up for, ensure that we are, welcoming and then we're supporting folks with disabilities to be part of any entity within our community.
That's really great advice. I think a lot of people tend to be really nervous around folks with disabilities, but you have to remember we're all human, just going through the same stuff.
Right, right. And I think it's how our, history and how our society has set things up, right? Before, and in my lifetime, people were institutionalized with a disability. Yeah. And I think that there's just this, perception, so some would call it, there's like a social model, a medical model, and a charity model of how we view disability. Charity is like, oh, these poor folks, we have to raise money for them. Come together, everybody, and let's raise money for them. That's devaluing them, right? Yeah. In my opinion. And then there's the medical model that focuses on, these folks are broken, we need to fix them. Right. And then so if we can move towards the social model, and the social model, our society is broken. And we need to change our society and how we view folks with disabilities. So I get it, and I understand why someone would see, if we for, someone's lifetime has always identified folks with disabilities, they have a special school they go to. They have their own jobs, their own staff, their own homes. They're really not members of our community, and we need to change that, right? We need to ensure that they are welcoming, valued, participating members of our community. So the structure isn't fully set up for that, and we need to work on changing that.
100%. Yeah. So why this? Why is this your passion?
This is a good question. Yeah. I've been feeling a lot lately. Now I'm into year 5 of running Merge, and a colleague of mine from New England Village asked me not too long ago, Lisa, do you wake up and do you have those days where you're like, oh, I just don't want to do this anymore? And I thought about it, and the answer was not one day.
Oh, what a great answer.
Not one day. I love my work, every aspect. I have not had a moment of regret or feeling like, oh, I'm tired of this. I actually get charged up. Every day is a new day, right? And it's just, I think this is my purpose. I have this really unique background, right? Working with folks with disabilities, and recreation around specifically for them. So I had that recreation, the importance of that, because recreation is a space where everybody can participate, and they can participate alongside peers who also like, a sewing class, right? Or music, or, we're going to do yoga together, right? And that's just beautiful. So it's just my purpose, I think. It's just my purpose. A funny story. When I was at the Y, and I felt like I knew I wanted to go on. I needed to move on. And I was starting to feel like I want to do this more broadly. And I know this is a little silly, but I was at my friend's house, and she called, she had a psychic come. And the psychic said, you were thinking of doing something, a big move in your career. And I had it. It had been going around in my mind. I just didn't know what it would look like. And she had said, my father passed in 1992, but she said, your father is telling you need to do this.
Wow.
And I've historically have always, my father always comes up, he's a little pushy, he always comes up in psychics. When I talk to psychics, it's just something I enjoy doing. And I literally went home and I asked my husband, can I get on your insurance? And he checked and he said yes, and I went and gave my notice the next day. I was like, yep, this is what I was meant to do. And there was a warning with it. It is going to be difficult. You're going to get started. You're going to hit a lot of, roadblocks, a lot of challenges, but you're going to get through it. But I did, like, just my, whatever, it was confirmation for me that I'm meant to do this. And it was the best day of my life, right? Yep, this is what I'm doing, and it's been straight ahead since. Of course, COVID was a little bit of a hard hit, right. But I made it through, and even stronger. So that was pretty amazing.
What a great story! I love that.
Why'd you start doing this? My father told me, and then they're like, "Isn't your father dead?" Yes, he told me that this is my path.
So, what's some advice you have for someone with intellectual disability or physical disability who feels kind of isolated, who feels like they don't really belong yet? How do they get integrated into the community?
Yeah. That's the hardest.
Right.
That's the hardest part of my job. The sadness that I feel when either a family member calls me or an individual, or they share that, I'm lonely. I'm at home, or I want my child to have a friend. And so my advice is always start with that. Go back to that self-advocacy piece, right? That exploratory, person-centered planning. Make sure we know, what does this person want to do? And there's actually a procedure that you can go through. It's a person-centered planning session, right? That you have someone come in and friends, family, community members who support this individual are all together to explore with this individual as a center. What are their passions? What do they love? What is the direction of their life, right? And it's a really powerful piece. I've been involved in it a couple times. Now you know what this person wants. There isn't assumptions, because sometimes we don't even ask an individual, right? Or we don't do that exploring. So once you find out what they love or would like to do, next is finding the right place to meet other people who also like to do that, right? So, and I think it's very important to understand, this is something that I teach in my trainings, that there are different models of how we participate. Briefly spoke about it. There's a specialized group. Okay, autism swim, just for folks with autism, or maybe wheelchair basketball that is created and designed for individuals who use a wheelchair and would like to play basketball, right? So it's for particular groups. So there's specialized, or adaptive, segregated. There's integrated. There's peer buddy, or like a buddy model situation. But then there's full inclusion. So you have to identify, how. I'm always teaching we need to move toward full inclusion. There might be a need for support at an integrated or a specialized model, but it should always be just a stepping stone towards getting towards inclusion. So we have to help them to get to that space where they can participate in what they love, but then eventually participate side by side with peers without disabilities, right? Peers who also love that activity, and not always segregate or separate folks, or create programs that are special needs programs that are just for folks with disabilities. We need to spend more efforts in taking our existing, right, groups, classes, activities, events, and making them more inclusive, because that's when somebody really belongs. So I think just, for the individual themselves, or if they're young and their family, or they are involved with a human service agency, for them to always be focusing on how do we help support this individual with their self-advocacy to want to be part of a book club, or start horseback riding lessons, or be part of a chorus, right? So, and helping them to get there. So, but here, it's hard work.
Right.
It's hard, and there's a lot of, we have to pave a lot of roads, and there are a lot of places who are still resistant to inclusion, unfortunately, mostly because there's a misunderstanding, a misperception about, we can't do this. We need specialized people. We don't have the background. And my response is, I'll teach you how. Right? If I can teach a group of 16 to 18-year-old camp counselors how to be inclusive, I can teach you. Right? And there's not really... specialty isn't required, right? Think about it. If a person were to have a child and they had no background, and they find out that their child has, let's say, Down syndrome, they learn how to do it, right? They figure it out, and maybe through the support of others or whatnot, but they figure it out, and we can figure it out too, and we work with that individual, and we work with their family or their support system to help figure out how can we help this existing group activity club to be, for this person to be successful in this setting.
Do we still have a long way to go? Or are we on our way anyway?
we are on our way. And I can tell there is more and more movement toward inclusion in our rec settings. And what happens is if one town does it well, it gets very competitive, and another town is like, wait, well, they're having it, now we're losing a good amount of our, community members who live in this town are going over to this town because they are offering inclusive supports. And then it is growing. And then the good thing about it is growing. So I'm going to give an example. I work with a couple of YMCAs that have just been hitting it out of the ballpark for a long time, right? And when I'm starting with someone new and they're kind of like, I can't see us being able to do this. This is overwhelming. I connect them with a Y that's doing it very well to help guide or mentor them. I think that's important because sometimes it does feel overwhelming until they can understand and see success, or they can envision what's possible, and then they start to go, oh, this actually isn't that hard. We can work together and do this. Right, yeah.
And we can work together as a community.
We can. We have a long way to go, but every day, every conference I present at, every training I do, and I have a room full of people, it just feels so magical. I just had the opportunity to change everybody in this audience's view, and hopefully, even if a quarter of them went home and did something different, that's huge. Yeah. That's huge. The impact of that is huge.
The work you're doing is incredible. Just incredible. I wish we had a million Lisa Drennans.
I know. Sometimes so do I. Right? Yeah, the days can be, there's a lot going on.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was such a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
To find out more about Lisa Drennan, visit mergeconsulting.org. Save the date. Pembroke is celebrating with fireworks. Pembroke Celebrates is an annual event organized by residents and dedicated to the people that make Pembroke a wonderful place to live. On September 16th, beginning at 5 p.m., the Pembroke High School athletic fields will be the place to be for activities including a moon bounce, National Guard inflatable obstacle course, local vendors, food, ice cream trucks, and live music. Families, you're welcome to tailgate and bring your own yard games and refreshments. As evening falls, the skies will be illuminated with the fireworks spectacular, best viewed from the football field and grandstands. For more information, visit pembrokecelebrates.com. Would you like some new ideas about preserving the harvest from your backyard garden? On September 13th at 6:30 p.m., join the Plymouth Public Library and Lori Walsh from Time for Wellness for the presentation, Preserving and Storing the Yield from the Garden. In this 1-hour program, Lori will demonstrate ways to preserve your produce with 2 quick and fun recipes. This program is provided by the Institute of Museum and Library Services and administered by the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners. Calling all vocalists, the Pilgrim Festival Chorus is holding open rehearsal and auditions on Monday, September 11th and Monday, September 18th at 6:30 p.m. at the Faith Community Church in Plymouth. Artistic directors William B. Reichter and Elizabeth Chapman Riley welcome newcomers of all skill levels to audition in a welcoming and casual environment. For more information, visit pilgrimfestivalchorus.org. And that's what's good and good to know on the local scene this week. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
If you've enjoyed this video by The Local Scene, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching.